Hi, my name is Schneitman with the tobacco program in Suwannee and Lafayette County. So I've been asked to briefly discuss what vaping is and then why it's important for you as teachers to know what they look like, what they're about, kind of some of the health risks, but also give you an idea of what you can do about it and why. Let's first define some terms. So sometimes you'll hear the term e-cigarette, you'll hear vaping, juuling, sometimes you'll hear people talking about pods. These are all terms for electronic cigarettes. You may have seen something like this. Yeah, that is an e-cig, and what this right here is the part that you'd put on your mouth, right? And you blow out a big white smoke, right, or vapor. This right here is the battery pack. That is actually the thing that this is where the heat actually generates the combustion to make the vapor, and then you put in your liquid into this section right here. So this is pretty common, pretty popular, and this is relatively small. This is basically the same size as, you know, a pen. You can see they're essentially the same size. Also, like a highlighter. Basically, it's slightly smaller than a highlighter, right? Now, and there's another product on the market right now called Juul. Much more sleek. Really, it looks a lot like a USB drive. I just happen to have one of those on my desk. You can see they look very similar in terms of size. This one's much more sleek, and this is the e-cigarette. Okay, this is called a Juul, and I'll show you this as well. This is the charging station for the Juul, which also looks very much just like a standard USB drive. You plug this into the USB for the power. You set this right here, it's magnetic. It sits right on top of it, and that's how you recharge the Juul. You have little flavor pods that you pop into the top here. You just sit this in, and that is all that actually has the flavor, right? You put that in, and when you see a student using this, you would just see them breathing in that. And this produces much less vapor than, say, something like this, or some of the other ones that are more like this one down here, with sometimes called tanks or mods for modifications, because you can put whatever liquid you want in these. These are much bigger. Chances are you're not seeing students with that in class because it's too big. This is much more discreet, and chances are much greater that this is what a student or a youth might be using. Again, so defining terms, we've got these e-cigarettes, vaping. This is all a liquid that is turned into aerosol that the person breathes in, breathes out. You usually see a big cloud of white vapor or smoke. That's why it's called vaping. You may be asking, well, why are we even talking about this? Chances are you've already seen some students, and maybe you use them, and I'm not judging. If you're an adult, you have every right to use this product if you want to. But right now, the state still says if you're 18 or younger, you can't use nicotine products. That includes e-cigarettes, even flavored Juul pods or whatever. But like I said, it's kind of epidemic levels. Let me pull up an article from the Truth Initiative, which is a national tobacco prevention campaign. The number of 77% growth in e-cigarettes among high school students. Now, this is some of the history lessons. Just go back real quick. Back in 1998, across the country, we had epidemic levels of tobacco use. So 1 in 4 people in the United States were using tobacco products. So you had this dramatic decrease ever since 1998. And here in the state of Florida, that was the rise of the SWAT program, Students Working Against Tobacco, the Truth Initiative here in Florida. There was a lawsuit against the tobacco industry because the tobacco industry had been selling a product they knew killed people, they knew caused health problems. You had all these people across the country who were moving to Florida to retire, but then they had all these health problems because they'd been smokers for a long time. And then Florida was covering the health cost, the burden for all these people who had kind of been duped into using tobacco products. And without getting too political, just to be clear, the tobacco industry, the people who were producing and selling tobacco products, they knew as early as the 20s, 30s, and 40s that their product was causing cancer. They knew it. When the lawsuit happened in '98, the internal documents were released, and we can see their own words, their own documents, that they knew nicotine was addictive. They knew their product was killing people with things like heart disease, was the big culprit, and they intentionally targeted disparate groups. You'll probably remember the Virginia Slim campaigns that specifically targeted women, and you saw numbers spike after those ads. The Marlboro Man, which was making tobacco use masculine, right? The sense of freedom. You had Newports, highly targeted to people of color. You had so many of these ads were focused on targeting young people, and you saw those numbers increasing like crazy. So again, to counteract that, you had this campaign that dropped tobacco use incredibly, right? Down to, I think nationally we're in the teens, like 10% or less of young people across the country use tobacco products now. So 1 in 10 kids use tobacco instead of 1 in 4. But you may say, well, so what? What does this matter? Well, we're concerned that Juuling may be the culprit in seeing that trend change. Now, I think it's unreasonable to think that those numbers would continually drop forever. Like, I don't see tobacco use going to zero among young people across the country. I think that's unreasonable. But when we get into 10% and less than 10%, 9, 5, 7% across the country or in specific populations, that's pretty phenomenal. But we're starting to see those numbers change. And like I said, with this article here from Truth, a 77% increase in e-cigarettes among high school students. Like, that's crazy. That's really crazy. And another key there is over half the people who use it are unaware that there's nicotine in the product. So there's a problem here, right? There's a culture in youth that they kind of are embracing this vape culture, but they have no idea what's in it. And frankly, it's so young, the science is a little unclear exactly just how bad it is. So I don't want to make any promises that it's the worst thing in the world, because I don't think it is the worst thing in the world. But it is not a safe alternative to tobacco use or cigarettes. And that's really the point I want to leave you with. As teachers, I want you to know that vaping is not this cure-all that kids get to act like they're smoking and there's nothing wrong. There is nicotine in the product. It can become addictive. In fact, the amount of nicotine they use if someone uses one vape is almost equivalent to 1 or 2 packs of cigarettes. So the amount of nicotine they're getting is crazy. And just so you know, nicotine, as far as all the science we've found, is the most addictive substance known to man. So you think of heroin as being addictive, nicotine is more addictive. So like, what are these kids doing to their brains when you're chemically altering their brain with nicotine so they can't shut those little warning signs in their brain off with dopamine, which your body automatically makes, but it's chemically altering the brain so that the only thing that can replace it is nicotine. That is addiction. Okay, so what do you need to know? These little tiny things called Juuls, they're prevalent. You can buy them right here in Suwannee and Lafayette County. They're tiny. They look discreet. They don't make nearly as much vape as the white cloud as some of the larger products. So there's kids, and we've heard from students that kids are using this in the classroom. So why do you need to know this? It's important because it's not a safe alternative to tobacco. Even though a lot of people think it is, it's not. Okay, next question. You may say, well, why are kids using it? Why, as a teacher, why should I care? What does this matter? The thing I'd like you to do is just be more aware of it in your classroom. You can't save every kid in our county. And it's not your job. You're a teacher. You need to teach, right? But you could be a stumbling block for this becoming a pattern and thinking it's okay to be doing it on school grounds, right? The tobacco policy for Suwannee and Lafayette County, so there's no tobacco use on school grounds right now. So if you find a student who is using it in your class, while it may be discreet and it may not be hurting anyone else, it's still breaking the rule. So I encourage you as teachers to take action, send them to the office. I'm not exactly sure how you guys handle that on campus, but read the tobacco policy so you're aware of what the policy actually states, and then talk with administration about how you can handle this if it happens in the classroom. We're not trying to send kids to prison by any means. I don't think we need to do anything crazy, but it's important that you can be a stumbling block for this kid to become addicted to the product, right? Okay, one quick thing I wanted to talk about, and if you feel like you've had enough, go ahead and turn the video off. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about some of the history of the tobacco industry targeting young people. We know that the tobacco industry has targeted young people for decades. And it was intentional practice, right? If I can get a kid addicted, someone who's, say, 16, 17, or let's say 20 for easy math, if I can get someone who's 20 years old to use tobacco products, then I can get 60 years of profit from that customer. It just makes a lot of sense to target a young demographic to get them hooked so they're using that product for years and years and years and years. That is good for my investors, that's good for my stockholders. As a corporation, their goal is to make profit for their stockholders. Simple as that. Their goal is not to make decisions that are in the best interest of the community, the nation, health of different populations. And once you understand the distinction that the tobacco industry has never promised to be a beacon of health in our community. They've never promised that. They've promised to be profitable for their stockholders. And again, I'm not trying to get too political. I'm just making you aware that their goal is to sell more products. It makes far more sense for them to target young people because they have a lot longer term profitability. So I do not believe that that vaping culture is accidental. I don't believe this has been an accident. Granted, I've seen behind the curtain and I've seen what the tobacco industry has done for the last 20 years. I've been studying this, so I may be a bit more jaded than the average person. But I'm convinced that this is not an accident that young people are gravitating toward vaping and vaping culture. I think that there is going to be a shift and you'll see even more marketing going towards kids. And I hate it, but it is what it is. And we're seeing it even locally. We're seeing kids using these products. So long and short of it, e-cigarettes are not a safe alternative to smoking or cigarettes or dip. As a teacher, you have the ability to be more aware of it in the classroom and on campus. If you see a student using it, call them on the carpet. Take them to the administration, handle it the way that your administration wants to handle it. If there's anything that we can do through the tobacco program here in Suwannee and Lafayette County to help out, please let us know. Feel free to call us here at the office, 386-362-2272, or email us. We'd be happy to help. If you need a presentation in the classroom, I'm open to doing that as well. So I hope this has been somewhat helpful. I hope that you're able to take this information and apply it on campus, and hope you have a great day.